That's right. I have my Snoke robe on in honor of The Last Jedi. Say what you want about the film, but Snoke had style and class. Oh yeah, real snoking it up in here. Alright, this has nothing to do with the actual topic of the video, so let me close this a bit. Let's talk about fandoms. For every movie and TV show, especially there's multiple movies and multiple seasons to a TV show, there's going to be a fandom that grows out of it. People who really love and enjoy that particular series or franchise. And that's good. People should enjoy things. One of the things fandoms are most well known for is taking two characters from their respective franchises and imagining what it would be like if the two were a romantic couple. Most of the time, well, the vast majority of the time, these couples never actually materialize on screen. The rare occasions a couple does actually show up, but usually it's those couples are ignored and people who are more casual viewers don't really pay attention. However, as soon as The Force Awakens came out in 2015, we had a pretty big uh, shipping controversy. Well, not really controversy, but debate. The romantic pairing of Rey and Kylo Ren has been a topic among Star Wars fans, among other things about the sequel trilogy. But as much as there are supporters for this pairing, there's also those that are actually pretty against it. So I decided it's time to actually look at the couple of Rey and Kylo Ren, aka Ben Solo, and see if there's anything there that makes sense. So first of all, how did this pairing come about? What inspired it? Well, the answer is pretty simple actually. The characters have great chemistry with each other. Yeah, even some of the more harsher negative reviews of the sequel trilogy, some of the negative reviews, not all of them, but some, are still willing to point out that the character dynamic and interaction between Kylo Ren and Rey is one of the highlights of the entire trilogy. The way they interact with each other, the way they seem to somehow relate to one another, it is very interesting to actually see these two on screen together. And that's also partly because of the Force Dyad, Force Dyad, Force Bond. I'm calling it a Force Bond. I know the official term made in Rise of Skywalker, but I'm going with Force Bond. The Force Bond between the characters allows them to actually see and talk with each other even if they're across long distances, like literally across the entire galaxy. Able to talk with each other, even touch and battle with each other, transfer objects from one location to the other location. It actually enhances their dynamic and on-screen chemistry and work together very well. So that's the basic foundation and inspiration for shipping these two characters together. Now, is there any sense in this? Well, actually, there's actually quite a bit. Let's first talk about something that's common in these Star Wars films, redemption. The biggest example of redemption in Star Wars being in Return of the Jedi when Darth Vader throws Emperor Palpatine into the Death Star core, sacrificing his own life to save his son. And there's been a lot of other smaller occasions in the franchise where it seems like the only way for a character to actually redeem themselves is to die shortly thereafter doing a heroic deed. And I don't really like that, to be honest. Like, once or twice is good enough, but let's actually have different kinds of redemptions. And I think there's a good redemption story for that for Kylo Ren. I mean, he still feels the pull towards the light side even after everything he's done. And so to have him pair up with Rey, someone who's ultimately trying to actually be a good person, be on the right side, will be sort of like the voice of reason to him to actually help him work towards becoming a more heroic character. And I think there's actually something nice and sweet about that. And sort of on the flip side, there's the argument that it can help give belonging for Rey. Rey is ultimately a nobody from the desert planet of Jakku, a scavenger who, even though has allies and friends with the Resistance, you can tell she doesn't really truly fully belong, at least not with really any large group of people. However, there does seem there does seem to be some sort of familiarity and comfort. Well, comfort might be a stretch with Kylo Ren when they interact with each other. Now, personally, I'm not a big fan of this particular reason for shipping Reylo because it does sort of imply in order for a woman character to belong somewhere, she has to be romantically paired up with someone. I might be reading a little too much into that, but that's not really one of my particular reasons for why I support Reylo. Now let's talk about a couple other reasons why. Does the shipping of Kylo Ren and Rey does have some sort of thematic closure in terms of romances in the franchise. Let me explain. The romantic couple that pretty much started this whole thing off is Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala. That romantic pairing unfortunately ended in tragedy. And so that left Anakin Skywalker to become the dark Sith Lord known as Darth Vader, turning him into a villain after losing the love of his life. In the original trilogy, there wasn't really much of a romantic couple theme. I mean, yes, you had Han and Leia. More on them in a little bit. But with Luke, there really wasn't any kind of romantic couple for him. And he pretty much stayed by himself, even making himself become isolated on a planet that he pretty much hoped no one would ever really find. So to have a member of the Skywalker family actually be able to be redeemed because of being paired up with someone romantically does bring some sort of thematic closure. I'm probably not explaining that in the most clear-cut way, but hopefully you can get what I'm trying to get at here. And let's look back at a couple reasons that tie into that reason: the happy ending and the Skywalker legacy. I mean, the Skywalker family has had a rough go over generations. There's Shmi Skywalker, who is a slave. Suddenly she's pregnant with a child. She has no idea how it got it in her belly. That child is also a slave for a long time until being taken by the Jedi Order. Although Anakin over his life has still had his own hardships, including seeing his mother being kidnapped and pretty much being killed at the hands of the Tusken Raiders or Sand People or whatever on the planet Tatooine. And later on in life, he's being tortured with visions of seeing his personal love, Padme, being in pain and ultimately dying, and he just wants to find a way to save her. And ultimately that, of course, ends in tragedy and in him becoming a villain. Luke Skywalker sees his uncle and aunt basically being vaporized, their skeletons in the sand, and Luke pretty much is willing to sacrifice his life for the rebel army and for his friends against the Empire, losing a limb over it and losing his father, who he had just redeemed moments before his death, and now he's pretty much alone by himself as well. And Ben Solo, aka Ben Skywalker, Kylo Ren, he's had a pretty tense situation with his mom and dad, to say the least. Constantly finding himself being mentally tortured and torn. I mean, the Skywalkers need a break. Especially the more heroic characters of the franchise in general, even if they're not a Skywalker. I mean, let them have a happy ending in order to close off the Skywalker saga. You might be saying, oh, that's just not going with the Skywalker legacy. It's actually honoring it, because underneath the sci-fi surface, Star Wars is in many ways a fairy tale. Granted, it's more like the traditional Grimm fairy tales and less Disney fairy tales, but still a fairy tale in many respects. So to have a happy ending is actually nice to see and does honor the Skywalker and hero legacy of the Star Wars franchise. And also, let's come to another symbolic meaning behind this kind of relationship: balance within the Force. The entire story of Star Wars is trying to find a balance between the light side and the dark side. In the eyes of many people, that means either the dark side will have to rule and win, or the light side has to defeat and wipe out the dark side. But that's not really balance, is it? Rey is very much a heroic character, but she is constantly feeling the pull towards the dark side of the Force. And while Kylo Ren has pretty much been the villain, he still constantly feels the pull towards the light side as well. So having them pair up together, find sort of compromise and middle ground to show a balance between them and the Force itself, does have symbolic meaning. And finally, let's get to the honestly my number one pick for a favorite reason to support Rey and Kylo Ren: original storytelling. Here's what I mean. The sequel trilogy has gotten a lot of criticism for recycling or even straight up ripping off the original trilogy. So to have a couple where it's the main hero of the franchise and the main villain of the trilogy ending up together actually is sort of original storytelling, both within Star Wars and within just most fictional stories in general. It's not something I've seen a lot in more mainstream TV shows and movies. So having a hero and a villain actually end up together is actually kind of a good bit of original storytelling. So those are reasons why a lot of people like Reylo, the couple, and a lot of support is there for it. Now, what are some of the reasons why people are against it? Well, back when it was just The Force Awakens, it's been assumed that Rey will turn out to somehow be related to Kylo Ren, whether it be a secret sibling or a cousin. Yeah, I can see why we want to stay away from another incest coupling. But now that that's been thrown out the window, let's look at another reason. People just don't want to see a good character interaction become romantic in nature. And I can see where they're coming from with this. There are a lot of movies and TV shows where they force a couple to happen on screen, but it just doesn't really work. Doesn't feel natural, doesn't it just doesn't seem right. And there are a lot of fictional couples that just don't sit well with a lot of fans, and I can understand that. But as I've mentioned before, the character interaction between Rey and Kylo Ren is actually really interesting, intriguing, and engaging. So that's not really an issue. So I guess one of the more final reasons for why people don't really like Reylo is because they just don't really like the characters, because they just don't really like the sequel trilogy. And I guess that's fine. I mean, it seems pretty dismissive to dismiss an entire trilogy of films without acknowledging that there are good stuff about it. There are very few movies and TV shows I just straight up say it's completely awful, there's nothing redeemable. But and thankfully that's not the case with the sequel trilogy of Star Wars. There is good stuff about it, not just Rey and Kylo Ren. So to dismiss the entire trilogy, as well as the idea of Rey and Kylo Ren being a romantic couple, just seems kind of foolish. Now, this part of the video, major spoilers for The Rise of Skywalker. See, even Quachi's giving you major spoiler alert. The end of The Rise of Skywalker, after Rey defeats Palpatine, is lying seemingly lifeless on the floor. Ben comes in stumbling, uses the Force to help heal her, to help bring her back from the brink of death after he's been severely injured himself. The two sort of smile and embrace, they kiss, and then Ben Solo dies and disappears into the Force. While I am a big fan of Reylo, I did not like their decision with how to go about with the kiss. In my opinion, this is really only two good ways to go about with that scene. Either have them kiss and actually have Ben Solo live and work to actually redeem himself by being with Rey and actually becoming a heroic character in the aftermath of the sequel trilogy. Or don't have them kiss and just have him die. It is, again, more of a traditional Star Wars redemption story with that second route. But if you just take out the kiss, them like holding each other, smiling, and looking at each other still heavily implies that there is a romantic nature to their relationship. And I think that'll be good enough. But don't have them kiss and then have him die. That's just, again, more recycling and ripping off the original trilogy than more original storytelling. So while the kiss itself, I admit I'm not a huge fan for in The Rise of Skywalker, I'm still a big supporter of the couple of Reylo. So yeah, come at me. Now, I'm gonna be more like Snoke after this video now, being all classy and smooth. So, leave your comments down below, like, subscribe, share, and see you guys next time.